to me a little bit about how you wrote the song you performed here, and if that's your usual method. Maybe we'll start with Maddie. We can kind of have it all.
That album, that particular project, The Sliver of Light, is very kind of dream-inspired. There were quite a few of the melodies and tunes and counter melodies that came out of sleeping. But now I am not writing that way. Now I am, my next project has been taking inspiration from random snippets and signs and things out on the street. So like all of the songs are inspired by either post-it notes that I see around, random messages on things, graffiti on sidewalks. For example, one song on my next project is called I Am Wood and I Know You Need Me. And that was inspired by a box of 2x4s outside of a hardware store. Somebody had taped up, had a box of 2x4s and taped up I Am Wood and I Know You Need Me. That is a good song. So I've actually been taking really traditional chord structures, very simple, very easy chord structures, and putting them together into songs for this next project. So it's not quite as complex as the writing that I did for The Sliver of Light, which makes it more fun in some ways.
Yeah.
I was trying to think, I don't remember exactly if there was one specific instance that led me to write that song, although I think it probably was a trip that Jamie and I took to her grandparents' house, which is in Rockford, near Salina, Ohio. And I think it might have been the Chat Bar, which if you're ever in Rockford, do yourself a favor and stop at the Chat Bar, because you can get like a country fried steak that's like this big. But I think it's, it's just a number of people I've seen over the years, women who are working at restaurants and, just you can tell they've had a hard life. And, I think it probably was that trip where that song came about. I do remember that the chorus of that song, it came first.
That song is maybe a little bit atypical in the way I wrote it. That one I'm moderately synesthetic, which means my senses mix. So a lot of times I will see sound or hear color. And so I was having a particularly orange morning, and the key of F is orange in my mind. So that a lot of the lines from that song musically came from, oh yes, I spent the night it's coming to me. I was in Yellow Springs and spending the night at my friend's house, and she painted everything in the house. And the lyrics are basically encouragement to my friends to not be so hard on themselves. Lines like "Don't be so masochistic," or "If there's a hole in your bucket, I have another one." But she was going through a hard time, and so it's a song to her and a lot of my friends. But seemingly so bright in color in my mind, a lot of melodies came from her house.
What comes first? Like, Robert, you said the chorus came first for you. Is that usually what happens? Like the melody,
It's
of
all
course?
over the place. There's I've never found that there's a real true method that, for me, that always is.
Yeah.
Usually there's snippets of words that have been coming from somewhere, and if I'm paying enough attention, I'll write them down. And, if there's something really good that I like, I may try to make something of it, but usually the harder I try, the more that doesn't work. Usually it has to just sort of percolate and then find its way to whatever it's going to be. And sometimes it is the music first, and sometimes it's lyric snippets first. It's different.
Yeah.
Melody, yes, always melody first. I don't usually write near a piano. I'm usually writing in transit, in a coffee shop, or on a bus, or on a train. So the song is usually completely composed before I ever step near a keyboard. So yeah, very melody driven.
Yeah.
So you're working out the melody in your mind, and then you kind of, I definitely do that too. Having a phone that has a recorder on it is really useful because I on the street, you'll hear 2 to 3 sounds, and all of a sudden a melody
Yeah.
comes out of that, whatever that interaction is. So,
Yeah.
so it's very interesting. Those are the moments when you have to get your phone out and go,
That's actually how the blind engineer stuff started. It
Yeah.
started with me wanting to record all these ideas that kept coming up, and I finally got a nice little digital voice recorder that kind of always shoving in an athlete's face after the end of a game, you know?
Yeah.
And I found that actually, in its own little way, it could be decent recordings if you didn't have high expectations for the sound quality. Right? They were actually pretty good. So, I mean, and so it actually grew into me actually trying to record snippets and then into songs and actually performances that I became a little more self-conscious of, I guess, as I worked. But it came from that need to just get down that brief idea.
Yeah.
So, and do you ever write but hum nonsense words as you write?
Yeah, all the time.
Bono said he did this. Bono said that that's how he wrote.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I guess it's all right.
Yeah. There's like watermelons. Watermelon.
Yeah.
It's just filling the sound for you, or filling the song.
As much, man, I've been playing the piano for a really long time, but I've only been writing words for a few years. So it's still really new to me, the whole concept of writing a song that I have to sing.
So a question about your creative process. How do you know when a piece is finished?
I mean, I think that's part of what makes performing music, or makes music different from literature, poetry, and fiction. And you're always tweaking those too, but I think the nature of performance encourages you to always improvise a little bit, to always change things a little bit. It's never the same every single time. So for me, I'm always thinking a little bit about it. Now, it's interesting because playing with the band, playing the Wells, we have to have much more, it has to be a little more unified, right? But then, if you're just playing by yourself, and actually one of the songs I was going to play sort of demonstrates that. I can play you a little bit of both versions of it. You can try different time signatures, you can put it in a different key if you just decide to. So, I think for me, I don't know that I'm ever completely settled on it.
My songs kind of come out like vomit. That's so gross. But like, you're not like, like when you're done, you're just like, oh, I feel better.
Like Rolling Stone did called Vomit.
Yeah,
He said that's
it's
how
just
it
like,
is. Great songs get better.
I'm done with saying what I want to say. But there is that ever-living performance aspect of it, that if you perform a song for a few months or a few years, it may change, and also if you play with a band. But as far as lyrically or like idea or content-wise, I'm usually just like, I'm done. Feel better.
That's kind of how I am too. It's like the song skeleton. The skeleton is always there. The skeleton can be rearranged. You can take a lead bone and put it on the arm and maybe move things around in the order. But the song is the song. It's like a lump of clay, and then it's interpreted in other various ways. So, like the recording of Top of the Chicken Fair sounds very different from what I performed solo, mostly because it had 6 or 7 different instruments on it and a banjo. And, if I'm able to assemble a lot of people, like I will go to town and the song will be very different, but always underneath is the song, because ultimately I've got to be able to do it by myself. So, but it is kind of like a LARP experience. I have the same thing. Like the song comes, it's almost like having a migraine or something, where it's like, and then like you write the song, and you're like, you feel so much better.
Yeah.
There's an anxiety. There's an anxiety before you write the song, and then it's just like, I don't know.
I just feel like I just feel sometimes like I really need to write about something, and as maybe it's part of the processing